get into the subject.
Welcome to another episode of On the Subject. I'm your host, Michael Vilardo, co-founder and CEO of Subject, and today we have an incredible guest. I'm so lucky and inspired. This is someone who, when I was growing up as a child, one of my childhood heroes, and so it's an extremely momentous, inspirational podcast we have for you today. We have a Heisman Trophy winner, first-round NFL draft pick, Texas A&M legend, and aspiring scholar, hence why he's on the educational podcast today, Johnny Manziel, a.k.a. Johnny Football. Welcome to the podcast today.
Brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks a bunch for having us. So we're really excited because we love when athletes have an opinion on education. And so I was a college athlete, not nearly as good as you, but I do believe we're pretty close in age. You're December 92, correct?
Yeah.
So I'm September 92. So we were actually in college at the same time. And so, again, really love watching your games. I played baseball at UPenn and then 1 year at Purdue, tried to get drafted, failed, but really love being able to watch you on Saturdays. Do you think with football, going to Texas A&M, such a great school, that it affected your education for the better or worse?
I think it probably affected my education for the better. Texas A&M is a great academic school. I went there with a lot of hope and promise about, you never know if football is going to work out or not. You really don't. You don't know if you're going to get a chance to go play. You don't know if you're going to end up transferring or all the things that come with college sports. But one of the big things about being able to pick Texas A&M that I really liked was no matter if I got a chance to play or if I didn't, me and my family both felt confident that, coming out of there, you're in a good position to be able to go on, to have a great education and go on and do what you want to do in the world. So I think for me, going to Texas A&M, being there for the 3 years that I was, education was at a, high priority for everybody within our athletic department. A&M did a great job of investing a lot of resources into their players because, as you know, it is hard to be a student athlete and and go to class and do all the things that you're doing. So I think I got very lucky to go to a school like Texas A&M to be able to have the resources and the education that I got from there.
Oh, absolutely. And so I'm a big believer in, I talk about a lot, running this education company, how important it is to go to a top 200 college. And so there's about 4,000 colleges in the U.S., and I always say, if you can't go to top 200, you might likely be better off going to community college, trade school, direct into the workforce. Do you know how high A&M is ranked on the U.S. News?
I do not.
So A&M is 47th in the entire country. Unbelievably high ranking. You're a scholar of A&M. It's higher than schools like Penn State, Tulane, George Washington. Incredibly rigorous academic situation. But you became a star so quickly into your redshirt freshman year. And from what I had done in my pre-read and research, you were forced to take online classes pretty quickly. Was that by choice, by necessity? How did that affect your academic experience, especially because your redshirt freshman year, I'm assuming you were more of a casual layperson being able to go to class and have that normal traditional experience.
Yeah, very much so. I think my first, year and a half that I was on campus, I was very much, a freshman coming into Texas A&M, going through your normal curriculum and everything that you had to when you first get on campus. And then as football came to be such a, same thing for me, my regular experience for class really went out the window. So Texas A&M helped me get to a point for a couple semesters there where I took, maybe one class in person and then the rest that I would take online. And I think for me, it was just something that was dealing with fame and people not allowing me to have the same college experience that everybody else was having. And at the time, it was amazing for me to be able just to wake up, go to class at home. And pretty much I was at my house all day from the time you wake up at 8 or so in the morning until, you have football practice at 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So it was definitely a change, of getting to have to really be on yourself to do it on your own. That's a real big thing that comes into it. Now, luckily being in the football program, you have your learning assistants and all the things that you have that come with being on academic scholarship at Texas A&M. But, the difference of going in and being around other students was definitely a big, shift in my time at A&M.
Well, and so you talk about all the discipline involved with football. And so I'm a big proponent that I believe sports, theater, music, I think that can actually shape a person's character and skill set even more than necessarily curriculum. But it isn't always viewed that way, and sometimes the world doesn't recognize how much goes into it. Can you talk about how many hours you were putting in while you were at A&M in terms of being a student athlete?
Yeah, I think your normal schedule for a student athlete pretty much is, depending on what your football workouts or what time of the season it is. I mean, you start at 7, 8 in the morning for your first class. You take normally, I believe it's like 12 hours to your semesters, if you're on, if you're a football player at A&M for the most part. So you really have 4 classes a semester, and your days really range from 6 in the morning to probably 6 or 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it
a full
really
day. It's a
is.
full job.
By the time when I got to the NFL, to see that schedule and what it was, they are really, really similar in like
Yeah.
length and time that you put in throughout a week. And I think you probably, have a more grueling workload at times in college than you do at the professional.
Yeah, I talk about for myself that being a student athlete at Penn was more time consuming than being a CEO. It
Yeah.
truly was, getting an Ivy League degree and playing baseball, and obviously not on the same level of Power Five like you were playing. I got that chance for 1 year at Purdue, but it was definitely more grueling. You have no time on the weekends to be able to get ahead. It was so intense, and so I'm really appreciative of the experience. And so, the college sports in general, college football especially has changed so much, especially over the last 10 years. What you did for AM is incredible. Gig 'em, let's go. Let's go A&M. And I just really wanted to touch on, you mentioned that you even considered leaving briefly to go play baseball. But thankfully you stuck with it. We got to get all the legendary highlights, your Heisman winner, so cool. Do you think though, if it was the transfer portal today and there wasn't as much rigidness around it, where, hey, you have to go sit out a year, you might have ended up pulling the trigger and it could have, completely derailed your storybook career.
Yeah, very much so. I think, after my first year and a half, I graduated early, so
Congrats.
my
So
yeah, my
congratulations.
timetable
Yeah.
was a little bit, different on it. But you know, getting there and getting to A&M and the way college sports were at the time is that year of sitting out was a full playing year
Yeah.
that you normally would have if you were, staying at the school you were at. So I really think that, if the portal or if it would have been open, it would have definitely given me an opportunity to go, you know, speak to that's what the kids are doing
Yep.
now. They're getting a chance to go in the portal. It's not necessarily that they're leaving, but they get a chance to go test their worth that they have at other places, and I think that's a big thing. You have a lot of people that recruit you whenever you're in high school,
Yeah.
and you commit to somebody, and seeing them when they're recruiting you, they're obviously gung ho about you being there. They want you to come to your school, and when you get to school, you're very much thrown into the mix of the other 120 guys on a football team that are there. So you don't get the time with this or that, and you really have your position coach who you're talking to. And that guy who recruited you, you may not have very much interaction with.
Yep.
You could get recruited by a defensive line coach who recruits your area,
And they're
and then
gone.
that's the guy you've known for your 2 years that you're in college, and then he's on the other side of the
Yeah.
ball. You may see him at a couple things here, but the guy that you've built a relationship with is no longer there. So the transfer portal now gives guys the opportunity to go and, really test their worth a little bit. So for me, I think, it was something that I would have maybe pursued because I was interested in playing football and baseball at the same
Yeah.
time.
Someone did not recruit you though, correct? You were almost thrown into a fresh situation, and so you probably had to really stand out in the offseason practices and really earn that starting spot. And sometimes you can even say, and we'll touch on NIL after this, but in terms of the transfer portal, those rigidness, as difficult as it can be, was a good thing for your development because you had to be able to work through and show that adversity and be, hey, I'm fourth string, but by the time season starts, I'm first string, and then I'm a Heisman winner. Like, you really were able to climb the rates, and your determination in dealing with adversity was tremendous.
Yeah, I think I got a very, whenever Coach Sherman and our coaches before someone came in, you don't know how that transition is going to be. Luckily, I had a guy by the name of Cliff Kingsbury who was
Legend. Love Cliff.
unbelievable, and a guy who had recruited me in high school. He was like, "I'm at University of Houston. I want to come watch you practice, but I don't have a scholarship for you, so I just have heard great things about you. And I wanted to come out of my way to come watch you practice." And then that guy walks into our building, a year and a half later, and he's like, "I'm going to be your coach." And I had sat and had a conversation with him a little bit about here's how I was feeling, here's what I was thinking about, and he just asked for, some trust in what the system was, that it fits me in the way that I play football. And luckily, I think more than anything, and this, goes for sports or it goes for education or anything, that if you get a teacher or you get a coach or you get somebody who truly believes in who you are as a human being, who you are as a person, and sees something inside of you that they have the ability to pull out, it's amazing what it can do to change your life and what it can do to leave a lasting memory on somebody, who sees something great in you, maybe when you don't at that point in time.
Yeah, confidence is everything, and they talk about how important it is, and nobody's gonna be be able to secure your confidence like a true mentor, a true coach, a true teacher. And that was beautifully said. Did you believe when you were a sophomore or junior at Kerrville High that you were going to play at the top level of D1? Like, what was your recruitment process like? Were you a late bloomer? How were you able to stand out and get, I think originally you committed to Oregon and then ended up Texas A&M, two incredible programs. How did you get those offers?
Yeah, I think for me, Kerrville is a sleepy town, 45, 50 miles outside of San Antonio. So, coaches recruit in the state of Texas. It's usually, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, and then you'll get some West Texas. So like you have some Austin, but those are kind of like the 5 areas that are recruited. If you start getting outside of those big cities, unless you're a really big powerhouse, kind of a football program or something, you don't get a ton of eyes on you unless you're starting to do some really spectacular things. So my recruiting process was very slow. Sophomore year, nothing. Junior year, really getting into the tail end after football season. Maybe around that spring, I remember being in a baseball practice, February, March, something of after my junior year, and starting to get some offers, smaller offers, and I felt like I was playing really good football. We were a great team going to a state semifinals. We were in the mix as a team aspect, and I was doing what I felt I needed to be doing, individually, and didn't really start getting any offers until then. And then they weren't anything that I was like super
Yeah.
over the moon about. I felt like I was better than, a better player than going to some of these smaller schools. And then it really changed. I came into the office one day of my senior year at the very beginning of the year and had a full ride to Stanford. And
Wow.
I'd never talked to anybody, never talked to a coach, had just got your normal recruiting letters that you get. And then one day a letter came in and it was a lot bigger than the other letters that I normally get. And I opened it up and it was a full ride to Stanford. And I remember thinking whenever that happened, I was like, okay, well, worst case scenario, I'm going to get a chance to go to Stanford and whether football or not works out, get one of the best educations that you can get,
Unbelievable.
in the world. And after that, I got a couple packed schools. Oregon ended up offering me as I went to go visit Stanford and Oregon kind of at the same time. And then Texas A&M didn't come in until really, really late. And I ended up committed to Oregon. I wanted to play for Chip Kelly and loved the, uniforms, the Nike connection. They were really good going to a Rose Bowl every year. And I ended up committing there. And then about 2 months later, I got an offer from an in-state school, which is what I wanted, for my family to have to go to Eugene, Oregon.
It's
Was
tough
a
to get to from Texas.
2-hour drive from Kerrville and then a 4-hour flight to Portland and then hop on another flight to Eugene. It was just like, I'm never going to see my family. I'm going to completely across the country and across the world from everything that I had known. And when the Texas A&M offer came in, it was easy for me to say, hey, I'm going 3 hours away now.
So you're a 17, 18-year-old kid having to call up a coach to decommit. I actually went through something similar. So I committed to Ohio State for hockey. And
It's
then
not fun.
Yeah, it's the worst. So yeah, talk about like how much it beats to your chest. I remember like my brother and I working through it, trying to console, like, how do we deal with this? Like, can you help me out? He's my little brother too. And I'm like, please, like, I don't want to have to deal with this guy yelling at me on the phone. And that stuff just, it gives you a ton of anxiety. But it does make you more of a man as a young person. Like, how do you remember did you call Chip or did you call the
I
OC?
remember walking in when I got a couple days after I got the A&M offer, and my head football coach, Mark Smith, is an amazing man. And he could kind of sense with me that I was weighing on the option of having to do that. And we had a conversation one morning and pretty much said, all right, if you want to go to Texas A&M, we're going to pick up the phone right now. We're going to call Chip Kelly. And I remember looking at him and being like, no, you can find out online.
Yeah, just email him. Let's go.
At the time, as being a kid. When
Yeah. Oh, you don't want to. You want to be away from
16,
pain.
17 years old, you want no part of the controversy or anything.
Nothing.
I remember him standing over me, like I can see it in my head as clear as this day, of him being like, we just pick up the phone, we're going to call him, I'll start out, hand the phone to you, and you just tell him what your decision is pretty much going to be. And he didn't take it well. I remember getting off the phone feeling absolutely dejected at the fact of having to do it. And funny story, 3 years later in 2014, I go to the NFL draft and the combine. And at the combine, you do a set of interviews. I had 8 teams on my sheet.
Oh, was he with the Eagles?
The first person that interviewed me were the Philadelphia Eagles and Chip Kelly.
Yes.
And on the phone, whenever I decommitted from him, he said, have fun playing for pretty much an inferior school for the most part. Oregon's going to the Rose Bowl. Texas A&M is going to probably not very good bowl games back then. And after winning a Heisman, I got a chance to go back in there and kind of razz him a little bit. Me and Chip always seemed to have he didn't take it too hard looking
Yeah.
down the road. They ended up having Mariota, guy wins the Heisman, he goes to the NFL. Like, the it all worked out for all parties
Yep.
involved. So, we had a good laugh about that a couple years later.
I love that. That's beautiful. And hey, all's well that ends well. And you made the right decision for you. And I always talk about young people in general, like whether it's a company or one, and I run a company, so I'm super passionate about culture and such. But at the end of the day, you don't work for the company. You do work for your household. You work for your family. You owe it to yourself and your family to do what's best for you because no one else is looking out for you. And it's like when you're making a decision around college, you don't know anything to someone who's like mid 40s who, yes, they want you to come there, but at the end of the day, you're just a number to them. And you're just as valuable as how well you're playing. And like obviously you played amazing, so I'm sure the coach and you were really close and good friends. But as soon as you start sucking, they don't care about you at all. You're right to the pine pony. You're right on the bench. And so there's a lot of pressure, and like they always want to be able to extract all value out of you because at the end of the day, that's their livelihood. They're getting paid to win games. They're not getting paid to make your life better. They don't necessarily care about where your life's going. They care about, are you going to help me make more money, get a better job? And it's just important to acknowledge the reality. And I think that's great when people can be honest and just say, like, hey, like, we're in this together. It's a business relationship. Let's be more forward about it. Why do you think college sports has taken so long to get to that place where we say, hey, we're making a ton of money off you. Let's just be honest about it and let's open the pie together.
I think the money has gone extremely through the roof just over the
So it's
last,
crazy.
20 years ago, 15 years ago, you didn't have, TV rights
Yeah.
and these deals and how many people are watching and everything. Like, it has just got to a point where the money is so much that you can't help but like do something different about it. The game and college athletics in itself is changing. In 1970, the, you know, NCAA basketball tournament didn't make $2 billion.
No.
Well, in 2024, it probably makes $2 or $3 billion
That's
for a
insane.
month of
Yep.
a month of basketball. That money obviously gets distributed, goes places, but then when it comes down to, you know, there have been individual players throughout years of college sports, whether it's basketball, football, whatever. I mean, look at the rise of what Tim Tebow did to Florida.
Unbelievable.
Like, look, there are certain guys throughout the years that move the needle and bring a real, like, monetary value of
Yep.
what a college, athlete brings to the table. My situation at Texas A&M, there's Caitlin Clark at Iowa this
Yeah,
last
she
year.
crushed it.
It's
She's
really,
incredible to
really
watch.
crazy. And I think once they figure out the little details of what's going on with college sports right now and the money in this, they just came out this week and pretty much said that, they're pretty much looking at college athletes as almost employees now.
Yeah, every school or the Power Five, they're gonna have 20 mil from the institution to spend. What I'm interested to see is how do they negotiate that? Obviously, like you would imagine, the quarterback is gonna get the most money, but what about the star basketball player versus the number one, pass option, whether receiver, running back? Chances are the football player most likely is helping generate more revenue even than the star basketball player, but the star basketball player might end up having an NBA career where he's making 30, 40 million a year. How do you negotiate that? I can't wait to watch. I'm a huge college sports fan. Love being able to engage in that. You're such a passionate Aggie fan, and I love that about you. You're so passionate. You're one of the best alum in the game, and you now have your own place, Money Manziel's, correct?
Yeah, the money borrowing
Yeah,
conversation.
shout out this place. I gotta go. It sounds amazing. What made you so passionate about getting back into the alumni space and being able to help A&M be able to get to the promised land? They've had some really good years. You obviously were the storybook time. What can we do to get them to the national title?
Yeah, I think, it takes for me just I want to see my school succeed in every way possible. I got the chance to, when you're a kid and you're trying to go somewhere and you go there and you have a career that's beyond what you could have ever imagined and you leave an imprint and a mark on that place is forever ingrained and instilled in me. And I feel very thankful for the opportunity to get a scholarship there, for the opportunity to go to school there, more so than just a football or, to the NFL or whatever it was for me. And I think um, when I go back there and I get a chance to see how guys treat me, players and, students or whatever it is, there's still a sense of connection because they went through a lot of the same things that I did. So for me, going back and being around a place that I genuinely love and genuinely care about and feel like I have the ability to be able to help our school in the smallest of ways, but whatever ways, go to where they want to go, and that is to a national championship, to a SEC championship, to being a successful athletic program. And I think for me, that's something that I want to see. I think guys before me at Texas A&M want to see that for, the players that come after them, and it just kind of trickles down all the way. We have a great brotherhood of, former athletes there that, still keep in touch with, still talk with, and, it's a cool, cool brotherhood.
I mean, it's an incredible program, and let's bring it to baseball for a second. Runner-ups to the national champs, incredible team, and I talked previously about hey being straight up about the money or intentions. The coach, obviously wish him the best, but the day before the game, kind of acts like he's not engaged with any talks, and then he skedaddles to Texas. Pretty interesting situation there. I love the hire they made, bringing the hitting coach and making him the head coach. But, that's exactly what I was kind of mentioning is like, why can't people just be more straight up? I think we all would have respected a lot more saying like, hey, I'm going to do what's best for my family and maybe a dream job opportunity will come up and I might take it. But he made it sound like he would have no intention of leaving. I just thought that was really odd and interesting.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, obviously for, me, watch that entire series, their entire run to the College World Series. Tough. And to go to a rival down the street is
That's
obviously,
brutal.
it is brutal, but luckily, the guys that are there and the guys who have got a chance to have that experience, we had a young team. We had a
Yeah.
lot of star players that are going to be coming back.
Yeah.
The culture can stay intact, whether your head guy is not there or not, So I think they've done a good job of putting, the baseball program in the best place they could. They have a lot of the tools there. Now you got to keep. To me, it seemed like a lot of the guys were happy. They were happy with the guy that they hired, the guy that we got there, and you know, you've seen it for years in college sports. You've seen coaches dip and dive and dodge and go wherever they want, and for them, it's that easy. They're going to have new players. They're going to try and bring some guys that they
And now with
want,
the
and now
portal,
with the portal, they
that's
can pretty
brutal.
much, come into a new situation that already has a pre-established NIL budget, and you go and you do exactly what you were doing at the school before, and it's a little snaky out there still.
It is. Well, and so what's cool, little connection, Penn, Texas A&M. So their third hitter this year, the catcher, Jackson Appeal, he was a Penn guy. He, in the Ivy League, wild rule, but once you graduate, you're ineligible. You can't take graduate classes and stay at Ivy League institution. So the third hitter at A&M, he played 4 years at Penn, and he was Jackson Appeal, but now he'll be out of eligibility. And then the Ivy League Player of the Year this year, Wyatt Hensler, third baseman at Penn, he's going to A&M, but there was a lot of drama there saying like, oh, is he going to follow the guy to Texas? He went in the portal briefly. He visited Texas, LSU, and Vanderbilt, I believe, but he stayed loyal because the hitting coach got hired. So shout out A&M. Love to see that. Let's bring it back to living in cities. You've lived all over the country. You've lived in LA briefly. I believe you live in Scottsdale now, correct? That's one thing that's really interesting about sports versus education. And obviously, the childhood dream of any athlete is to get drafted, especially first round. And it's so cool that you lived out your dream. One of the challenging things about sports, in my opinion, is they tell you where you have to live. You don't get a choice. It's saying, hey, Johnny, you're going to Cleveland, or hey, Zion, you're going to New Orleans. Whereas as someone who's leveraging your degree, you want to go live in New York City? Go ahead. You want to live in LA? Go ahead. You want to go live in London? Go ahead. You want to quit your job? Go ahead. Do you think there's some type of interesting piece? Now, the NBA has been a little different. People like LeBron have really paved the way where now the players have a lot more power where they can sort of demand trades of sorts and kind of, be able to dictate their terms. But isn't that interesting when you think about athletics where you're pretty much told like, hey, your whole day is controlled and you have to go live in a certain city? Sometimes that can be really challenging for your heads because like, what if you don't want to live in a certain city?
Yeah, it was difficult for me. I think Cleveland is a huge, 180 from what Texas is.
Yes,
And to be
yes.
born and raised in Texas and never really leave for 22 years and then go to Cleveland, it's like I'd never seen anything like that. I'd never seen the weather like that. A place, I think it takes a toll on your mental and how your life goes a little bit. At the end of the day, you sign up for a 4-year contract, one that pays obviously really well and one that is warranted. It's the way it's always gone. You go play college sports, you're good enough, you get a chance to go to the draft, and then you get a chance to, go play in the National Football League. But for me, I think I've got a chance now since I've been out of the game to live in a lot of different places.
Yeah.
I went to Canada and played football there for a whole year, so got to see, every province there. Got to live in, Montreal for a year. That
Montreal's
was great.
beautiful.
It was a really, really cool place to get to live and a great, country to get to see. I went back to Texas for a little bit after I lived in LA for 5 years. And, was still like Texas is always home, a place I want to be, but like not a place I'm ready to full time live yet. Just with, I think for me, being in Texas, I get noticed and recognized a little bit more, and I want to be in a place for me where I can go live a normal life, and I don't have to have this, have to be a famous football
Well,
player
you
or
don't want to get
whatever.
pulled away for pictures every 2 seconds of your day.
So
I'm sure that
I've
can.
settled on
Yeah.
Arizona, and right now
Yeah.
Arizona's been great for me. I play a lot of golf. I think the weather outside of the summer
Yeah.
months is absolutely amazing, and I found great people there. So
That's like a great place. So tell me why you chose to live in LA versus New York. So once you were done playing or took a break, you were basically in, full autonomy of your life. Like, I'm going to do whatever I want. You chose LA. That's one thing we're always counseling with students or even young employees. Like, hey, what city you go to, it really impacts your life a lot. And I'm a big proponent like LA, and for technology, SF is really big as well. So LA, SF, New York, incredible for technology companies and being able to get a great tech job. Was there a reason you chose LA? What drew you to LA?
I came out here. I think I wanted the exact opposite of whatever Cleveland was. And whenever I got in Cleveland, I
Yeah.
came out here for a month and then ended up staying for 4 or 5 years. And it just kind of happened that way. I loved everything that I think anybody loves about
Yeah.
LA and about California. And, it was something that was just completely different of the world I'd been in for 2 years. It was always sunny. It was great, great weather, a lot to do. Um, and I loved it here. And I think, after 4 or 5 years, I left probably sometime around 2000, 18, 19. So I got out of here before the whole COVID, the pandemic and stuff. And, you know, made my way not too far over to Scottsdale and started playing golf every day and never really looked back.
I love that. So do you have any aspiration to get on any type of tour?
I don't think so. I think for me, playing golf is it gives me that competitive fire that I had in football. It gives me that ability to compete and go out and have, a good time. I think a lot of it too is helping my mental health. And I think with being outside every day and getting a chance to spend 4 or 5 hours out in the sun and getting a chance to, do something physical, do something that's good for your mental, for me is worked volumes.
I love that. Mental health is everything. Mental and physical health, fitter body, fitter mind. Always prioritize yourself. Always prioritize a little ability. So there's two last things I definitely want to touch on. And so one, you obviously are an incredible athlete, and you could tell you're a really strong guy. But you're not a huge guy by any means. And I think that really drew, someone like myself, for instance, to being such a fan of yours. You're not some 6'4" quarterback who's like running a 4.2. What do you think made you so special? Was it the way you process the game? Could you see things slower than everybody else, or your shiftiness? You obviously were extremely elusive. Like, how did you be able to stand out as someone who probably wouldn't stand out if you threw you into the crowd and said, "Hey, that guy's going to be the best player in here"?
Yeah, I think, go back to that Cliff Kingsbury situation where he comes in. He also brings in an offense that was a lot like what I had ran in high school. One that was very easy, very wide open. You just get a chance to make a decision and you play fast. And if it wasn't there, you get a chance to run. So I think, bringing that offense in fit me to a T, and, gave me the opportunity to be able to showcase what my abilities were. Also, I think in high school, the football program that I was in, like, prepared me for so much success. It was hard-nosed, military style, just really, really brutal to the point of where they got us mentally tough really, really quick. And I think for me, the combination of those two things of getting able to, have a coach that believes in you is going to put, it's all about, I think on the football side, it's all about when things go bad, right? When you're not playing the way you're supposed to and you're down on
Yep.
yourself, being able to have
I think
somebody
I
that
do.
beats you up a little bit, even as mentally tough as you work. And I was coming into, the college game, having somebody that believes in you outside of yourself is a huge, huge thing.
It's huge. And so this is one thing I think will really help a lot of our listeners, especially someone with such status and accomplishments you've had. You were a football player for the first 24 or 25 years of your life, and it's so core to your identity. I went through it at a much lesser stage again at like 21, 22, saying, okay, I'm not going to be able to make it as a professional baseball player. I got to figure out life. Like, what is your identity today? Would you say it's more entrepreneur, golfer? Like, how do you really be able to pivot that identity from football player to just being the happiest Johnny Manziel you can be?
Yeah, I think for me, I just look at myself as, I always wanted to get back to a sense of normalcy in my life. The fame and everything that comes with playing in college and the NFL that came along with it. I liked it for my first couple years out here, and then it gets to a point where it's just overwhelming. And, I think for me, getting back to a sense of normalcy and being just like anybody else that you see, Walking around the streets has been great for my mental, great for my mindset. And now I kind of just look at myself as I have the ability to freelance and be able to do whatever it is that I want to do. And you know, that's nice because your whole life with the sports and everything, it's so structured and it's
Yep.
so regimented and it's so this, and this, that when life slows down a little bit, it gives you the opportunity to be able to see, you know, what you enjoy, what you like, what means the most to you. And I've really leaned a lot into, you know, my family. You know, my uncle, my sister has 3 kids now, so I get a chance to watch them grow up and be in their life. And then get a chance to play a lot of golf and then still do a lot of business things on the side. So I think for me, it's just, you know, finding what you like and finding what you're passionate about. And there is a huge transition and a turnover there when, you know, something you've done your whole life is no longer there. You know, I went through a year or 2 years where, you know, I didn't know what to do when I woke up every morning. What I normally had done is gone. So I think, you know, just finding things in your life that, you know, make you happy. That's what I went after. Things that, you know, I found I needed to find something that gave me joy, like football gave me joy. And, you know, my family and golf has been something that's brought me, you know, some of the happiest moments of my life over the last couple of years.
That was beautiful. I really appreciate perspective, and the authenticity is amazing. And, for someone again who had from afar been such a fan of yours and seen so many of your highlights and podcasts, and in fact, I'm sure you could appreciate that when you play baseball, you do like these double celebrations. And one of ours at Penn, and my specifically was largely this because of you. Shout out you. My best friend and I, he would do the throw the stacks. I would do the Money Manziel. But you're an inspiration to so many, and you're so articulate and clearly very, very intellectual and intelligent and deliberate about what you're doing today. And so I'm a huge fan of yours. I really do believe that the power of education can transform lives, and the fact that you're so passionate about being an Aggie, being an alumnus, and going back and helping those student athletes have better lives, not just careers. It's a beautiful thing. And anytime you're in LA, you're a friend of subject, and I really appreciate taking time to speak on the podcast today, Johnny. Legend. We will have another episode again here soon. Closing out for now, Michael Vilardo. Thank you so much.